For a long time, basketball had been a central part of my life, and a part which I aspired to succeed in. Long hours of club practices, tournaments, and putting up shots at the recreational center in the summer of grade 9 was common. Yet beneath all of this lay a rather subversive culture, one where pressure from teammates, the social prestige at stake, and above all, the manufactured fear of falling behind, led me to believe that I not only could succeed by making the elusive school team, but that I had to succeed. Otherwise, all would be for nothing. Of course, as tryouts came around, I didn't make the team. I was quite bad at the time. But instead of completely abandoning basketball out of failure, I accepted it. I realized that success was not the sole purpose of my engagement with basketball to begin with. Rather, its ability to act as an escape from pressure and to build valuable relationships is what I've grown to appreciate today. And as such, I believe society, and especially us youth, truly stuck with the same issue that I faced. That through societal pressure and through societal pressure and hustle culture, we've been made to internalize a very stark belief that achievement, whether through income, status, or even grades, is something that we must labor towards, even at the cost of our time, our relationships, and our own well being. But despite the modern prevalence of hustle culture, it's been with us for millennia. In the Middle Ages, feudalism between farmers and landlords told us that a strong work ethic was a societal obligation. In the 19th century, the all encompassing American dream brought hope to millions of immigrants. It was seen as a meritocracy where personal ambition and sacrifice meant that anyone could succeed. And even then, in the 1990s, the Silicon Valley tech giants of Google, Apple, and Amazon told us that an all consuming commitment to work was necessary to cement our success in a rapidly changing world. And that is where modern hustle culture truly took form. So, where do we actually see this narrative, whatever it is, in our lives now today? Well, it's evident in how social media companies and influencers exploit algorithms to propagate the same single myth that slaving towards material success is necessary for fulfillment. For youth, it is a toxic atmosphere of college admissions, wherein counseling accounts and social media constantly glorify the notion of prestigious Ivy League universities as not just the gold standard to aim for, but the only standard to aim for. That is, if we want a successful career, a prestigious degree, and a fulfilling life, then we must make it into a top university, even if the 5% that are actually admitted are chosen completely arbitrarily. What this has meant for youth, though, is that we are constantly told to do more, to take more rigorous courses in APs to boost our GPA, to pack our extracurriculars list with clubs and leadership roles, to cold call for more summer internships and programs, all in the hope of maybe making our college application special. But all this really tells us is that society perceives our worth to come not from our true selves, but from simply what we produce. And that's what's unique about these online platforms of LinkedIn, Instagram, and even TikTok. They emphasize our insecurities by telling us what we lack and by highlighting what we are actively not pursuing. But of course, this is not just an institutional shortcoming. It extends deep into our inner social circles as well. Families continue to pressure us to succeed, to adhere to cultural expectations. And actually, this might come from a notion of goodwill. So much social economic uncertainty genuinely means that a parent has no guarantee for their child's generation, especially in a job market where 5 years of experience is needed for an entry level position. But even our closest friends and companions become distant as hustle culture drives a wedge of competition into our relationships, forcing us to compare our grades, our extracurriculars, and even our success within life. So, what do all of these coinciding influences actually mean for youth? Well, whether you're entering the workforce after graduation, continuing on to university, or still pushing through high school, the pressures you experience now directly change your aspirations for life. That is, under hustle culture, we begin to believe that our worth is not from our passion or our motivation, but from the raw output that we put forth. And what this really means for youth is that we are told to achieve at the first moment of possibility, which shapes and molds our desires entirely. We are led to believe that things like becoming a doctor, lawyer, or engineer is the most aspirable thing that we can ever achieve in our lives. And what this has really led to is a weaponization of this very productivity as a coping mechanism to justify the very stress that we face in our lives. It's become a mechanism where we're unable to see anything beyond it, where we completely base our self-worth and our meaning entirely on what we produce, on our grades, on our marks, on our extracurriculars, and things that ultimately are somewhat out of our control. What this truly means, though, is that this is a cycle that goes on for generations. We ultimately look towards sacrificing our commitments to our friends, our family, and our communities. And it's quite paradoxical because when we seek to sustain our lifestyles through incessant work and stable incomes, we sacrifice the very relationships that make life fulfilling. But this is not just a momentary phase either. It's an arc of willful blindness that we are experiencing across generations. We are indoctrinated into believing that the glorification of this productivity is something that actively prevents us from seeing the way it ravages our everyday lives. And what this means is that we make trade-offs and we concede that trade-offs are necessary to succeed. These are trade-offs and materialistic myths that will soon be passed on to our children. The culmination of this is the rising mental health crisis within youth. Burnout and stress from struggling to acclimate to toxic achievement culture means that things like chronic anxiety, exhaustion, and hopelessness for the future become increasingly rampant. In fact, out of 540,000 15 and 16-year-olds across 72 countries, 66% experience constant stress over poor marks. Yet, at the heart of this issue lies a fundamental dependency upon material success for our self-worth. The metrics of income, status, and grades are trapping us in a cycle of diminishing value with no passion or motivation to uplift us. And this begs a very fundamental question. Why should we let achievement or productivity determine our worth? And on a very fundamental level, society is entirely based around work as a central pillar of our lives. It encapsulates the way in which we earn a living. It forwards the notion of serving our communities. And above all, it makes us believe that success within work is a prerequisite for success within life, whether it be finding your identity, building a purpose, or building a community. But society is not the sole perpetrator here. We as individuals begin to internalize these beliefs. Whenever we fail to embed ourselves into work for the sake of progress, we shun ourselves. And honestly, as I was writing this speech, I felt incredibly lazy whenever I wasn't rushing to meet any kind of deadline. And what this means is that on a very personal level, the purpose of work remains clear in our minds: to make money. But Professor Daniel Markovits of Yale Law School points out the underlying tension in this mindset. Because a person who works exclusively for pay treats themselves as an asset rather than a person, which can make a person wealthy, but not well. Clearly, this is true. Spending the majority of your life extracting income from yourself as an asset becomes incredibly alienating. You often leave your own desires and your own well-being to rot in the dust. On the other hand, though, some proponents of hustle culture might claim that it's a meritocracy. It's a fair system where personal ambition and sacrifice means that a chance of success is possible for anyone. This is not true. So long as materialist conceptions of success continue to dominate this framework of hustle culture, a meritocracy is never true unless equality of opportunity is actually legitimate. If anything, succeeding in hustle culture is more like a lottery. It was determined by the affluence of the nation you were born into. It was determined by your access to basic education and security. It was determined by the wealth of your family and community. And it was determined when climbing to the top of the social ladder was never an option for millions. So, in general, this is incredibly problematic then. But why is it actually important now? Well, social economic uncertainty means that traditional paths to material success are increasingly fleeting for us youth. Global unemployment, economic recessions, crippling student loan debt, and the $750,000 dollar price tag for the average Canadian home all hinder paths to idealistic success. Even COVID contributed to this. The line between personal and work life was increasingly blurred. And AI, with its rise, will continue to challenge our very ability to access work far into the future. So, how are we currently responding? Well, in the workplace, there's increasing disengagement from workplace culture. After Gallup census polls in 2022, it found that only 31% of American employees actively felt connected to their workplace culture. It was social media, for example, that contributes to the pushback against traditional rise and grind narrative by pushing ideas of a soft life and quiet quitting. And even AI, with its dangers, still gives us an alternate path to traditional sacrifices and time by allowing us to increase automation and our efficiency. But this is not enough. The culture remains as pervasive and as prevalent as ever. And while it may not be disappearing instantly, there are things that we can do to try to combat it. On a societal level, we can look towards other models of redefining work-life balance, such as those of Scandinavian nations, where regular vacation leave, wellness programs, and exploration in communities is championed. But on an individual level, overcoming such a pervasive culture means finding passion and meaning within one's work. It means finding the true second purpose of labor, to build a community and to build your identity. For youth, it means looking towards a field that you truly feel passionate to explore and invest into, not one that society told you would let you retire at 60. It means changing your perspective, evaluating intrinsic, lifelong relationships over the facade of economic prestige. It means accepting that not everything will always be in reach, whether it be an acceptance letter from Harvard or the perfect six-figure job offer. It means taking time and spending moments with your family and your friends to form memories and experiences that will you remember for decades later in life. And it means that when all is said and done, and we look back upon our lives, we can be proud to say that our time, our love, and our efforts were spent realizing the dreams of our own and not the illusions of others. Thank you.